my name is Ella Marino, and this is my final presentation for Linguistics 36 at UCSB. I hope that any prospective students, whether it be to UCSB or just to Linguistics or to any university, I hope this video helps everyone understand why linguistics is such an important topic to learn about, regardless of your intended career path, the career path you're on now, your major, it does not matter. So for my research project within the field of African American English, I chose to apply the subject to my own interest and background. I'm a junior at UCSB and I'm majoring in psychology with a minor in applied psychology. So as this major who volunteers within my field, I'm interested in the communication between myself and the patients that I interact with. I also am interested in observing therapists and patients, as well as, my volunteer experience. So in addition to connecting linguistics to my career path, I also wanted to connect it to my background. I'm from New Orleans, and all of my family there speaks what is an African American English dialect, even though only half of us are African American. Being from the South, I'm exposed to these accents and dialects and speech patterns of African American English constantly. My parents, as well as the entirety of my family in the South. So because of my history with African American English and interest in psychology, I chose to do an experiment dealing with African American English in a counseling setting. And this research analysis will examine therapy given in different dialects. So the therapy will be given to people who strictly identify as a speaker of African American English. And it'll be a between subjects design administered in 2 separate conditions. So we'll have therapy in which the therapist speaks in African American English, and therapy in which the therapist speaks a formal English with a strict grammatical code. And I hypothesized that the most well-received therapy will be given in African American English, as it's both easier to understand and identify with if you're a speaker of African American English. So in the process of gathering information for my research project, I also examined literature on the topic. So we have African American counseling and how it is received in regards to the style of the therapist. So current research has examined African American attitudes toward race and style, and there showed a main effect for both. So the study examined African American males and their preferences in regard to African American counselors versus European American counselors. It was easier for patients to relate when the therapist was the same race, but the condition that I'm most interested for my research is that the therapy was person-focused. So when therapy conducted uses aspects of the person's behavior to mimic them, it was more accepted, and the patients better related to the therapist. So that might be mirroring with your body, with your tone, facial expression, things like that. So this also relates to linguistics of the therapist. If the person receiving the therapy speaks African American English, it's easier to relate if the therapist also speaks in African American English. So this is a part of mimicking. According to the study and my own intended research, language is a very important factor in making sure a person responds to psychological therapy. So, in conclusion, I have found this class to show areas of research I didn't even know existed, and because of this, I can say my personal career path has shifted. And this course has shaped my future in the way that I look at patients receiving psychological care, and I now have a more centralized view of what I want to study, which is really cool. And I think it's important to notice the speech patterns that exist between patients. And so now, because of this class, I understand the different grammar and phonetics of African American English, and I can apply this to my own intended job of being a therapist. Because as a psychological counselor, it's very important to be attentive to details, and this includes what dialect people are speaking in, and what dialect they're responsive to. So this course has just been an extremely important resource for me in deciding what career path to take, and it helps me learn about culture outside of my own, and in the end helps me understand, it helps me develop a more understanding point of view overall. So that's all. Thank you so much for listening.